You won't believe what happened to me the other day. I was just sitting on my porch, enjoying a quiet evening, when out of nowhere, the HOA's self-appointed Karen stormed up and demanded I leave, right off my own porch. Yeah, you heard that right. She acted like I was breaking some big rule, but honestly, I was just relaxing. Things quickly got heated, and I felt like I was being unfairly pushed around in my own neighborhood. But here's where it gets wild. Just when I thought this was about to turn into a full-on neighborhood drama, my Marine unit showed up, in full uniform. Now, I'm not talking about a casual visit. These were real Marines, standing tall and ready, and their timing couldn't have been more intense. The look on Karen's face, priceless. But what really happened next? Did my Marine friends help settle the situation, or did things spiral even further out of control? Stick around, because this story isn't just about one nosy HOA member. It's about standing your ground, unexpected support, and the crazy twists that come with defending what's rightfully yours. You're going to want to hear how it all unfolded, and trust me, it's not what you think. Don't go anywhere. This is just the beginning. So, a little backstory before things got really intense. Our neighborhood's HOA has always been a bit strict, but lately, this one lady, let's just call her Karen, has taken it to a whole new level. She's the type who watches every little thing, ready to complain about anything she doesn't like. And honestly, she's made it her personal mission to police everyone's behavior. I've seen her call out neighbors for the tiniest things, but this time, it felt different. When she told me to get off my porch, it wasn't just about some silly rule. There was this sharp edge to her voice, like she wanted to prove a point. I was confused and frustrated. My porch is part of my home, my space to unwind. But Karen wouldn't back down. It was like she wanted a confrontation. Just as I was starting to wonder if I should call it a day, I heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps coming up the street. Then, out of nowhere, my Marine unit buddies arrived, in their dress uniforms. They're some of the most disciplined, respectful people I know, but seeing them standing there made me realize this wasn't just going to be a quiet neighborhood dispute anymore. Why did they come? Was this planned or a coincidence? And how would Karen react now that things had shifted so suddenly? The tension was thick, and I could feel that whatever happened next was going to change everything. As my Marine brothers stepped onto the sidewalk, Karen froze. You could see the shift in her expression, 1 second full of authority, the next completely thrown off. She clearly wasn't expecting a group of uniformed Marines to show up, especially not with that calm but commanding presence they carry without even trying. She adjusted her clipboard. Yes, she actually had one, and tried to act like nothing had changed, but the energy had flipped completely. Now, here's the thing. These weren't just friends dropping by. We have a small reunion planned, something we'd quietly coordinated after one of our own got reassigned overseas. Nothing flashy, just a porch meetup, a few stories, and some time to reconnect. But the second they arrived, it was like Karen decided this wasn't just a porch hangout. It was some kind of unauthorized military gathering. She started firing off HOA rule numbers, claiming uniforms made it too official, and that it could disturb the neighborhood atmosphere. One of the guys, a quiet but serious Marine named Taurus, stepped forward, not aggressive, just calm. "Ma'am," he said, "we're not here to cause problems." But that didn't stop her. She started snapping photos, muttering about violations and emergency meetings. I could tell she was trying to build a case, maybe for a fine, maybe worse. Behind all this, there's more at play. Some neighbors have quietly shared their own stories about Karen, times she's overstepped, acted like she ran the whole place. One even mentioned she tried to get their kids written up for excessive sidewalk chalk. There's a growing feeling in the neighborhood that this isn't about rules, it's about control. Meanwhile, the Marines didn't budge. They didn't argue. They just stood there with me, present and respectful, and that only seemed to frustrate her more. The more calm we stayed, the more she tried to escalate. At one point, she even hinted she might need to contact authorities. That's when I realized This wasn't just a personal issue anymore. It was about something deeper. About dignity. About who has the right to feel safe and welcome in their own home. And suddenly, I wasn't sure how far Karen would go to keep her version of order intact. The tension was thick. I could feel eyes from across the street, curtains moving, doors slightly open. The neighborhood was watching, but no one stepped in yet. Everyone seemed to be waiting to see what would happen next. Karen stood there gripping her clipboard like it was a badge of power, still snapping pictures and mumbling something about unauthorized assembly and disturbing the peace. You could tell she was rattled, but doubling down. My Marine brothers didn't flinch. They stood with quiet respect, hands behind their backs, their uniforms sharp, their presence unshakable. But the tension in the air, you could practically feel it pulsing. Then she pulled out her phone. I saw her dialing, walking a few steps away like she wanted privacy, but still loud enough for us to hear. Yes, I need to report a situation involving possible ordnance violations and military presence. That last part echoed. Military presence. Like we were an invading force or something. My jaw tightened. This was no longer just about me sitting on my porch. This was a full-on HOA showdown, and she was trying to turn it into something bigger. Inside the house, my hands were still shaking, not from fear, but from that slow burn anger you feel when something completely normal gets twisted into something it's not. I looked over at Taurus and Jackson, both still calm, but I could tell they were holding back just like I was. We all knew how easily things could get misunderstood when uniforms were involved. And now Karen had thrown in words like report and disturbance. The porch, once a place for laughs and catching up, now felt like a spotlight. A couple neighbors came out, standing just outside their garages, pretending to water plants or check mail. But their eyes were locked on us. I could see them wondering if things were about to spiral. That's when one of the younger Marines, Lewis, who had barely said a word the whole time, stepped forward just a little and said, "Sir, if this turns into a thing, you want us to leave." I shook my head. "No, you're my guests, your family." He nodded once and stepped back. It was a small moment, but it hit hard. Then Karen turned back toward us, phone still in hand, and said, "I've spoken to someone. They'll be arriving shortly." That was it. No explanation, just that icy smile like she had the upper hand now. At that point, every second felt stretched out. Were police really coming? What would they think walking up on Marines in uniform, standing politely on a porch, being accused of violating HOA rules? Would they listen? Would they understand? Or would this go somewhere none of us saw coming? No one moved. No one spoke, just the low hum of a neighborhood on edge. The kind of silence that comes right before something big happens. Just as that heavy silence hung over the porch like a storm about to break, we all heard it, tires crunching slowly over the gravel. A black SUV rolled up, unmarked, but clean and official looking. Karen straightened up immediately, like she'd been waiting for this moment. She gave us this smug little nod and muttered, "They're here," like she'd just summoned backup in a neighborhood turf war. We thought it might be local law enforcement, but then the back door opened, and out stepped a man in a suit, not a uniform. Karen looked confused for a split second. Then behind him, another man stepped out, and I recognized him immediately. Colonel Harris, retired, still sharp as ever. He was our old commanding officer, and apparently also someone's godfather to a neighbor 2 doors down. Talk about timing. Karen didn't recognize him, not right away, but I did. So did Taurus and Jackson. You could feel the energy shift again, but this time in a totally different way. The colonel looked at us, then at Karen, then calmly said, "Is there a problem here, gentlemen?" His voice was calm but carried weight, like someone used to handling real problems, not HOA drama. Before I could speak, Karen jumped in. "Yes. These men are gathering here in full uniform, intimidating the neighborhood, ignoring HOA protocol. I have documentation." She actually held her phone up like it was some kind of courtroom evidence. Colonel Harris raised an eyebrow, didn't say a word, just looked at us, then back at her. "Ma'am," he said finally, "are you aware that these men serve this country? That they're here as private citizens, invited guests?" Karen blinked, clearly not expecting that response, but she wasn't backing down. Uniform or not, this is still a violation of our peaceful community standards. And that's when the second twist dropped. Colonel Harris glanced over his shoulder at the house next to mine, and out stepped Miss Delaney. She's been on that HOA board longer than anyone, and she's quiet, doesn't get involved in drama. But apparently she'd been watching the whole thing from her kitchen window, phone in hand, and she wasn't calling to back Karen up. "I think we need to talk," she said, her voice steady, "because this isn't the first time something like this has happened." Now Karen's expression changed. She looked rattled in a way I hadn't seen before. Not just surprised, but exposed, like she knew whatever was about to be said, it wasn't going to go in her favor. All of a sudden, this wasn't about porch rules anymore. It wasn't even about uniforms. This was turning into something bigger, something about accountability, power, and how far one person could go before the neighborhood finally pushed back. No one moved. Not a word from the Marines, not even a shift of the feet. We were all locked in, waiting, because whatever came next, it was going to flip everything. After that day, things around the neighborhood shifted. Karen quietly stepped down, and a new HOA board took over. People who actually cared about community, not control. The porch, once her battleground, went back to being a place for laughter, memories, and reunions with my Marine brothers. Neighbors I barely knew started stopping by, sharing their own stories of run-ins, and quietly thanking us for standing our ground. That envelope, it sparked real change. So yeah, I learned that sometimes it takes a little pressure to expose the cracks. But respect, unity, and standing together, that's what truly holds a neighborhood together.